Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here checking out OlliOlli World, the third in the series of OlliOlli games by Roll7 and published by Private Division, who, just a heads up, gave me a review copy of this in order to do this video. So, there you go. I'm usually honest about these sorts of things, I hope. So, this is basically another OlliOlli game. It's in 3D now, but it actually maintains the majority of the mechanics that made the first two games popular, which were two-dimensional precision platformers based around skateboarding. You've got these linear courses that go from left to right, although you can branch off and go towards different areas depending on whether or not you go off a branching path, which is new to this game, or whether you do something like get onto a different rail, which will often get you onto a different route with harder obstacles, but anyway. And the general idea of the game is that you're a skateboarder and you need to try and get as many points as possible, complete as many objectives as possible, and then get to the end of the course alive, because bailing means you're going to be sent back to the last checkpoint. So the controls in the game are pretty simple to understand. It's just making them all flow together that works in the hard way and makes the game interesting. So you've got your left stick, which will let you do jumps, grinds, and flips, depending on what direction that you move the analog stick in. And you can combine these flicking motions together in order to create combos of tricks in order to get a high score combo. There's also grabs on the right stick that you need to hold for points and then let go. You've also got the ability to spin on the left trigger and right trigger. You've also got the ability to press the A button on landing for bonus points. You've got the ability to do manuals. You've got the ability to do a couple of other things I'm forgetting about at this point. But basically, the entirety of the skateboarding trick set is here and represented for the most part. Can't do anything crazy like create your own trick a la Tony Hawk's Underground, which is unfortunate. That'd actually be pretty cool. But yeah, there's it's basically the majority of skateboarding tricks available to you. And you need to make them flow all together in order to get through these courses, because there are tons of rails, there are tons of ramps, there are tons of jumps, and you need to navigate them all while performing all these tricks for as high a score as possible. Stringing as many of them together will get you more points because of the multiplier. It's all pretty easy to understand, and the game actually tutorializes it a lot, to the point where you're actually seeing footage of the third area of the game. There's 5 areas in total, and they're still doing tutorials. And there's even stuff they haven't taught me yet. They technically haven't taught me how to do manuals, and it gets kind of annoying with the objectives, because as soon as they teach you how to do something, you can guarantee that the next couple of levels objectives are basically going to be, do this stuff that you just learned. Which is kind of annoying in my point of view, but we'll also get to that in a little bit. So the majority of the game is reliant on the physics of jumping, doing tricks, landing on rails, trying to get that perfect line through a level in order to get things done as quickly as possible. And for the most part, it works. It is a satisfying experience to jump into a level of this, be constantly doing tricks off rails and ramps and doing grab spins in the air, like 540 grab spins that get you a lot of points, chaining it all together and getting as many points as you possibly can. Just the feeling of it, the way that it reacts, the way that the physics work. The majority of it all works fine, but there is a couple of things that kind of annoy me. The main one being the camera, of all things. Now, I don't think they've designed the camera in this game to be exactly right with how much you want to be seeing. I think they need to zoom it out by about 20%. Just as a baseline, just because you move quite fast in this game, and it can be very hard to see what is coming up ahead of you, to the point where it feels like you need to be relying on memorization of the courses a bit more than you realistically should, in order for that feeling of being able to string stuff together and take on what may come without needing to know what's there in the first place a bit more satisfying. And so as a result, sometimes you'll end up going through sections really fast, and sometimes you'll even see like a warning of what's coming up. Like, it'll send you into a quarter pipe, which will send you into a layer in the back. And there'll be something in the back that you'll need to worry about, but you'll be coming up on it so fast that by the time you're on top of it, you won't have time to actually do the flick and get out of the way. it kind of requires memorization of exactly when you're meant to jump, to the point where you'll often have to do blind jumps, quote unquote, sometimes, where it feels like you'll need to do your jump ahead of time before you see the obstacle that you need to avoid. And I feel like this could be just nimbly sidestepped by simply zooming the camera out a little. It works okay most of the time, but when you're going at max speed, sometimes it's just really hard to see what's coming up and what you need to do to be worried about it, and it kind of sucks in that sense. It is also worth noting that timings on things like rails can be really annoying. Like if you need to come down and press a direction on the analog stick in order to actually start grinding a rail, but sometimes it'll feel like some rails you'll just pass right through them even though you swore you held the button half a second ago, and it can just kind of drive you mad from time to time. I don't know if it's because of timing, if it's because of a physics issue that I'm not totally aware of, but sometimes you'll just phase right through rails and that'll cause you to need to restart, and that can just genuinely annoy me from time to time. There is also the issue of speed. Going fast in this game and doing tricks is good, but sometimes things will slow you down, whether it be doing tricks that you otherwise don't realize would slow you down until it's too late, whether it be not grinding on a rail to the very end, because the longer you grind on a rail, the more you speed up most of the time, which feels kind of strange given the ideas of physics and what have you. And sometimes you'll just be stuck on a checkpoint, and no matter what you do, you won't be able to get the speed up in order to actually get the checkpoint done correctly. And sometimes you'll have to go against what feels like the right thing to do in order to actually get stuff done. Whether it be holding onto a grind rail at the very end, which just feels kind of weird, or whether it be not actually getting your speed up because it's expecting a very specific speed from you. These are all nitpicks, I will admit, all of these three things that I've just mentioned, but they kind of pile on. And when you've got a level that puts 2 or 3 of them together, it can make a level really frustrating to get through. Which, again, well, not again, didn't talk about it on this take. Admittedly, it's actually helped out by the way that the game handles the challenges. So you've not only got high scores you need to set on every level, but you've also got 3 unique challenges. Whether they be collect objects on the way, avoid objects on the way, do specific tricks at specific places, do a specific amount of points in one combo, something along those lines, right? And those objectives are actually really generous, because not only does your score not reset if you get reset to a checkpoint, but there are some objectives that will let you try them over and over again with a proper reset. There are very few objectives that haven't gone against this, at least at the point of the game I'm up to, which is about 3 hours in. But there are objectives that say something along the lines of, say, wall ride every wall in the level and get to the end of the level. Makes perfect sense, right? Nothing particularly wrong there. But when you've got one that's like, avoid all of these objects at all costs, and then you've got like a section of the level which is full of them, as long as you don't hit the next checkpoint, you can just endlessly restart, and it won't count those sorts of objectives against you. So you can go and do those objectives as much as you want, and as soon as you complete that objective, you can just quit the level immediately. So as soon as the game pops up to like the little recognition that you've done those objectives, you can just quit the level straight up and it'll let you keep it. So it's very generous and kind of a silver lining to the whole sometimes the physics just don't work the way you expect them to, and it can just kind of make the game frustrating from time to time. Whether it be from what feels like overly precise timing, some speed issues, or the way that the camera works, but it all works. It's just sometimes these issues can build up, and I'll just give it a little bit of leeway by those objectives. And considering that most levels have like multiple paths to go down, there are ways to play around with it in order to give yourself a little bit of extra replayability, whether it be going for objectives, going for high scores, or both. So you can be playing around on all the different paths, trying to figure out the timings and the ways that you just go about getting around every single objective. And it does work. It is still satisfying. Just sometimes there's some nitpicks to be had. So the game's also got a pretty big customization element. The more of the objectives you complete, the more of the multiplayer you participate in, the more of the high scores you get, the more of this stuff you will unlock. You'll unlock more clothes, more hairstyles, more accessories for your guys. And the unfortunate thing is that it always makes you look like a hipster. Doesn't seem like there's anything you can do to avoid it. It's just the way the graphical style works. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't like it. I like the whole environmental detail they've got going on in the background of each level, although it's very hard to actually look at it when you're going along at what feels like 100 kilometers an hour, just trying to survive on this bloody skateboard course of death. And I do like some of the weird details they put in, some of the weird animals or people that show up from time to time. And it makes me laugh when you see like this alien and this sentient cactus talking to each other at the end of the level for no particular reason whatsoever. And I just find it to be kind of funny. But the characters themselves are all just hipsters. Really annoying hipsters, like the sort of people you'd see in Woodstock that you'd actively avoid just because they'd harsh your buzz, man. And I'd be lying if I said I liked the writing in this game at all. So I actually skipped most of it when I'm playing the game. I played the game for like half an hour and then I just started skipping the majority of the text, which the game does let you do for the beginnings of levels, but not the ends of levels, which is annoying. But even then, there's a laugh to be had in the beginnings of levels when you're skipping, because the prompt to skip the text is always the most impolite thing I can imagine saying at the time. It's basically a, screw you, let me go skateboarding and let me not have to listen to your BS every single time. Just pay attention to the background footage I got going on in this video that has people talking, and just watch for that prompt, because it's always something incredibly rude and therefore incredibly funny to me. So, yeah, game's a bit hipstery. So's the soundtrack. Admittedly, I just never really clicked with it, if I'm being perfectly honest with you, and it just kind of faded into the background. This ain't no Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, I'll tell you that much. I genuinely don't have any care for it. There is also... Damn, I forgot what I was going to say there. There is also... what was I going to say? Never mind, I'll move on to my next topic then. Jesus. Alright, so there is also some side content that you can do. Not only are there the main levels, you've also got some extra hard levels you unlock by getting high scores throughout all the levels. There are also some bonus levels that you unlock that involve some ridiculous things like chasing a bear down a river, or having an endless loop of course happen where you have to go and score as many points as possible. And these often end up being the best parts of the game. These often end up being just really enjoyable. In fact, I'm kind of disappointed in how there is very little in the way of like proper not half pipe, but like, I guess it is technically like a half pipe. It's just like an endless repeat of ramps, quarter pipes, and rails for you to grind on that you just need to get a high score on. And it doesn't even have a leaderboard. Everything else in this game has a leaderboard. Whether it be the levels that are included with the game, the infinite procedurally generated levels, or the multiplayer league, I believe they called it. But these little side areas that could potentially be a really cool idea only seem to show up once and then never again, which is a disappointment. So, yeah, yeah, that's a disappointment. I don't know why they didn't have like a active multiplayer mode which has you just like scoring on one particular level, or just having those sort of half-pipe-esque courses and just have people scoring as much as they can in like 60 seconds or what have you. But anyway, moving on. There is also a fair amount of multiplayer content in this game, although it's all asymmetric, whether it be leaderboards in the main courses, but there are also, for the main courses, challenges that can come along, rivals I should say. And these rivals have like 100 more points than your best, so you just need to go and beat that. I don't know if there's a reward for doing that, but if there is, I am not aware of it. And it's kind of odd, isn't it? Because you can always see your personal best. So you can always see what your highest score is, and then the rival comes along and it's like 100 points higher. I don't know why they wouldn't make the rival like 10,000 points higher in order to keep it a challenge or something along those lines, but okay, sure, why not? There are also two other kinds of multiplayer modes. One of them is a procedurally generated mode. where you've got a length, a difficulty, and an environment that you unlocked out of the 5 that you get in the game. And it provides you with a procedurally generated course that you can share with your friends in order to do some score attacking. Fair enough. And then it also does the same thing in the leagues, but it picks one, makes a bunch of people go up for it, and then gives you like ranks to go through as the season continues. And if you do that, you'll get some bonus customizable stuff. It's okay, but admittedly, I'm not that much into the game in order to actually find some enjoyment out of that. And I can see that becoming quite repetitive quite quickly, especially since it relies on the same procedurally generated stuff. And all of the procedurally generated levels feel the same, gameplay-wise. They do have, like, their own unique mechanics from time to time, but they all feel very flat just in terms of presentation. All the regular levels have a lot of background detail going on for them to help them feel different, but all the prompt gen levels just have the same sort of empty background with just nothing but the obstacles you have to worry about in front of you. So as a result, I can see it becoming relatively boring for the eyes quite quickly at the very least. Although the depth in the gameplay with how much you can score on one particular level will definitely keep at least the hardcore coming back from time to time. And there are definitely some DLC packs coming out to give you a bit more with it. Although personally I don't think I'll be doing that. Just because, while it is a satisfying game, it does get a little bit old after a while. While the gameplay does have a little bit of depth to it, and there are absolutely things you need to learn about it in terms of keeping up your speed when you can do specific tricks, and getting the whole rotation of buttons in, like doing your flip, holding a grab, dropping onto a grind rail, dropping down, hitting the button in order to start doing a manual. While there is some depth to be found there, personally, I'm just not having the biggest amount of fun with it. And as I said before, things like keeping up the speed has been more frustrating than fun for me. The camera is a little bit weird, and grind rails having that weird timing gets in the way at the worst possible times and just frustrates me that little bit. So personally, I'm not going to keep playing. I don't think it's a bad game, and if you like OlliOlli 1 and 2, there is no reason to pick this one up. To not pick this one up, I should say. There is also no reason not to pick this up if you like what you see in terms of the gameplay. Just, yeah, pick it up and give it a shot if you like what you see here. I am playing this on PC, and there's very little in the way to customize in the way of graphics options, though. It's relatively lightweight, but it is still something that potato computers probably won't be able to run. And notably, you do need a controller for it. This game does not work on keyboard, which is entirely reasonable because, good lord, trying to do this sort of control scheme on keyboard would be an absolute nightmare. With that said, though, yeah, I also don't care for the story. There is a story. It's all about your character becoming the next skate wizard. And the previous skate wizard is about to retire. And the previous skate wizard has to be a pothead of some kind. Because that's just the vibes I get from her. In fact, everybody seems to be some kind of, embodiment of a certain kind of wacky tobacco, if I should put it that way. Because, I mean, it's a kid's game, so they never go too far with it, but you can definitely tell, just by looking at some of these characters, what sort of drugs they would take in their free time, and it's just that little bit odd. So, gameplay. Pretty fun, fair amount of depth, kind of let down by a few niggles on my end. Story is not good, characters are kind of annoying, music is forgettable, and everything that they unlock in terms of customizability makes you look a bit like a hipster. There's like one other thing I haven't gone over, which is like masteries that you unlock at the end of every set of levels. That gives you like endless goals in the background to do in order to unlock some more customizable stuff, but that's it, basically. It's okay. I don't have a massive problem with it. There are some tweaks I'd like to see made, but it's still a pretty decent game at the end of the day. Not something I'd recommend you go out and buy immediately. I think $30 US might be a little bit too rich for it. But if you're a fan of OlliOlli, you've probably bought this already. And if you like the look of it, and considering that it's actually kind of hard to get the original 2 anywhere, and you don't mind the fact that everyone is a drugged up hipster from time to time, give it a go. Can't hurt. And considering that it doesn't weigh you down in endless It's something that doesn't weigh you down in endless cutscenes, endless tutorials, and still gives you a relatively decent amount to do in the first 2 hours before the Steam refund period is up. Yeah, why not? Can't hurt, right? With that said, this has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you all next time.
Oi! Chasing a Kiko.
Salvatore and Hekelin Leman
Salameke in Taring Taram.
Lydia, manager.
Sorry.
Inagorefoden.
Avoro.
Damat. Gododen. Help.
Yakene mortini. Kereba kalan jiki. Inta payanat.